Welcome to iAMradio broadcast 15. One of the reasons that I'm doing this is to practice talking about some of my recent discoveries and to see what resonates with the people, what's helpful to you, where you at, what makes sense. And I use this material one-on-one with clients and also one-on-one with myself, and I found that it works, which is why I'm out here sharing to see, what it's like to talk about some of these concepts in a non-specific manner. If I'm working with someone or I'm working with myself and I know how their head works, I can say, I could share this information with their words, and so they can kind of use it. Y'all got lots of words, y'all got lots of heads, so it's different. What would be really helpful to me while I'm talking about something that's abstract, so I'm going to practice something a little bit more abstract today, is for you to shout stuff from the audience. And I recognize it's midday if you're in the US, so if you don't watch this until later and you want to see what I think about what you've got, then just send me a message and I will holler back. So, law of attraction, you create your own reality, all of those concepts are gaining traction and a more widespread conversation. And if you've been in the game for a little while, you might have found that you can't get it works and it doesn't work. And law of attraction to me is a phrase like trauma or healing that can be counterproductive. Law of attraction sometimes implies to people in their heads that it's specific. I law of attracted a jar of coffee. I law of attracted this lipstick. It's like the nice things. But from what I can tell, your entire experience, and they say this, Abraham Hicks, I'm not adding this to their work, I'm only pointing it out. So here's a person, and this is their world. So when you do a 360 in your life, there ain't shit there that isn't part of your exercise and use of the law of attraction. It basically means there's a relationship that you have that to the external world that is inseparable from your internal world. And there are a lot of ways that you can work with this information on your kind of imagine being in a 360 IMAX theater. So if you're from PA, in Pittsburgh, they have at the Carnegie Science Center, they have a big IMAX theater, and an IMAX theater is where the movie screen expands beyond your regular field of vision, so you kind of immerse. It's almost like virtual reality before virtual reality. Maybe, I don't know the order, but let's say in popular usage. So when you are in the world, in your life, both internally and externally, it's an IMAX theater production of what you got going on the inside. And what you've got going on the inside has multiple levels or layers as far as I can tell, and you have a personal narrative, things that you would recognize as someone reached in the file and pulled it out, and they're like, oh, you're attracting this because your dad said that one time. But there are also things that go, it seems like, back through your actual lines, and also through kind of imparted by the collective. And the and the collective, which is everybody else, imparts things multiple ways, but one way would be through their own belief, which could be spoken or unspoken. It could be through imagery you watch outside, film, movie, media, etc. It could just be witnessing the world around you, but essentially all of these things combine to create what you expect to find. So it's almost like someone gives you a paint by number, and it already has a bunch of lines drawn on, and you say, oh, look, I'm using yellow instead of the purple it prescribes. I'm different. But really, you're just you don't even have to use the lines. So the collective impartation are the lines on your wall, and a lot of the lines are really difficult to see because they've always been there and they likely have been unquestioned. So much of your reality, so much of your experience, you partake in without asking if this is essential. It's kind of like you always have had, it's very subtle, but you could think about it like events in time where someone says, if you want to get here, you have to do A, B, C, D. And yes, A, B, C, D have gotten, that order of events have gotten other people here, but it doesn't mean you can't get there some other way. And thank you. And there's so much that remains unquestioned, basically, and I'm having a hard time pulling an example, which must be divine, but most of the thinking that remains unquestioned comes from this idea of the self, I, and all of that thinking is faulty because there is no I. And I talk about that in other broadcasts, and I'm going to push it down now just so I can focus on what I'm talking about today so we've got the law of attraction, and I'm saying everything in your world ain't special. You called it all into being. And you could say, but Shay, I've really been focusing on this. Brah. Your why for the focus is way, 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 way bigger energetically, or so it seems, than the what. So generally, if you're intensely focused on something, it's because you have a belief about it. And when I'm talking about this today, this would be applicable to you if you're trying to get out of something or into something. Basically, you're not cool with what is internally or externally, and so you're trying to leverage things to get somewhere else. Okay, so I'm in my theories here, but from what I found, that intense why, that drive, comes from a place of unresolved or unaddressed feelings, usually on the pain side. It seems like the more hesitant you are to feel your experience, the more likely you're going to think about it. It seems like a lot of our thinking is around, how do I avoid feeling? And it's usually in the future or through like the artful navigation, which is really kind of, it's not deceitful, but it's dishonest navigation of the relationships around you. So when you aren't true to what you really think and feel, and you express something that you think would appease or fit or whatever, there's something under that. And it's really common, and it's encouraged really through what we see on television. I was talking to a writer who was in town filming, and we were talking about how that media influences behavior. And I pointed out the dialogue in early 90s sitcoms basically trained that whole generation to keep secrets from each other. Here's this group of friends, they really love each other, and yet they don't share, they're not transparent at all. It's wild when you start to see how we tiptoe and do this landmine dance around what other people might think or feel. And when you allow yourself to be there, be with that information wholly, it'll really blow your mind how much that happens for no reason at all. And maybe you're not somebody that's ever done that or know what that is. So if I'm speaking to this and you're like, I don't know what she's talking about, you're either so bought in that you think your mask is your face, or you're just different. But it seems like most of our world is operating in some of that way. And when I say our world, I mean like this little Western thinking bubble. So my point today was to talk about, if you're starting to think about the law of attraction, and leveraging it consciously, be mindful as to why. If you're doing it to escape a situation or pain or something, and you likely don't know, and I've said this in pretty much all of my broadcasts a bunch of different times, most of your inspiration to act, inspiration to think is invisible to you and makes a much bigger difference than what registers consciously as far as a thought. You've got reasons behind your reasons that are influencing what you choose to think about, what you see, how you see it, etc. And if you're only functioning at that level, if you're only working with that information, you'll keep running in circles, because it's like you're looking at the puddle instead of the hole. And that's why it's really helpful to work with someone. You could work with me, but it's really helpful to work with someone. I work with people because you can't see your hole, because that's like where you're looking out from. So you see the puddle and you think the puddle is because of this or because of that, but really it's your own faulty way of thinking and looking at separation, and it's learned. So it's nothing to be mad or sad about. And it does seem like you can patch all of them with just acceptance. And sometimes some people, like some areas are easier to accept than others. Some make more sense to accept than others. It seems like the areas that we've had the most difficulty in, the ones that are closest to our heart or most often in our head, have some barriers to acceptance. And then it can be really helpful to work with someone so you can see yourself. How are you creating this? If you're in a dance, you see your dance partner, but you can't really see you, and you're dancing together. So if you're dancing out of harmony or somebody's stepping on somebody's foot, you're a part of it. And it's really easy to say you, but like, boo, it's you. And to me, that's super empowering, because then you don't have to control anybody or change anything except your own perception to shift dynamics that aren't comfortable or supportive of you. So what I was talking about is, it does seem like, so from a personal experience, what I found is that a lot of thinking, like I said, generally indicates some level of fear of feeling. And you might have, instead of a lot of thinking, what you might be doing compulsively is eating or working or shopping or gossiping or watching TV, or there's something that on some level isn't productive, and yet you can't stop you. There you are, doing that thing again you said you wouldn't do, and so now you're doing the thing, you're feeling some type of way about the thing, and you can't get it to stop. That is generally, like I said, an indication that there's something that you don't want to feel, and you think that you can think your way through it or around it or solve it or prevent it in the future, or it's coming from there. No, nah, it's in here. So when you notice you're doing one of those compulsive things, thinking, eating, blah, 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 bring yourself here and soothe you into the present. So it seems like this experience is at least two major parts. I forgot I have to write backwards, or I could just write heavy and I'll go through. Feelings and thoughts. So they're connected. They influence each other. If you're thinking some type of way, you feel some type of way. If you feel some type of way, you think some type of way. And you attract from this place. And what's difficult to see, and what I've been talking about today, is that a lot of this usually means you got a lot of this. And it could be yours. Like I said, what we carry subconsciously has different components. They're different. It's like one of those little sectioned lunch boxes where you have your own shit, your parents' shit, society's shit, human shit. You have a bunch of stuff on the plate. And if you have a lot of stuff on the plate, you generally have a lot of stuff going here, and you likely can't find peace, and you're likely looking for peace, or at least I was, and trying to follow these thoughts in a way that you believe them. That means that your thought says, go get here, go do this, go get that, and you think, okay, I'll do that. That'll scratch the itch. I'll figure out how the universe works, and then I'll feel better. Oh God, you would not believe the ways that I hid from my feelings in the most convincing, layered, complex ways. Like, Jesus Christ. It really wasn't until, I guess, I started surrendering control in 2018. I looked at human design, and human design said, hey buddy, the way you're built, maybe it was 2019. It's like, hey buddy, the way you're built, you can't work strategically. And I had been judging myself because I couldn't understand why everyone else was making plans, and I was just like flying, like dancing in the moment. I thought something was wrong with me, but that's just how my brain is built. So I started to work with that material and accept components of myself that I had been trying to fix. And like, it really is like exiting the matrix. You start to like pull yourself out of like all this slime, and you're like, oh, I didn't even know. And you start to put down this stuff, and you can't feel it because you've always have it. And so you don't know that there's a lightness that you're missing, although you're searching and seeking for it. And you think by getting more, you'll feel it, but it's really like this discarding, this unlearning process. I've been talking a lot recently about how you have this sun, this moment that's always pure and true. What you're looking for, that sensation is here. It's an allowing of the self. It's an accepting of what is. But you're carrying all this shit about where you think those sensations will be found. If you get your life right, if you achieve this, if you're smart enough at that, if somebody loves you this way, if if you're good enough this. But it's the removal of those ideas that connects you with that sensation. And for me, there was a lot of fear. If I took those things off, would I do anything constructive or productive? And at times, I didn't. When I took some stuff off, I was like, fuck all this. Just like laid down. I was kind of mad and sad about it. And it took a little bit for me to digest it and get my mind right, my attitude, and see what a gift it was and what freedom I had actually reclaimed. And it does seem like people grow and contribute from more holistically and sustainably from that place of wholeness when they're not trying to scratch an itch that they can't. So if you recognize that the feeling that you want is here, then you can start to peel off these ideas around where you think you'll have to get it, how you think you'll have to be. And what I'm pointing out today is likely if you got a lot of mental activity or a lot of behavior that you're not like pumped about, it's likely because of these feelings you've been hiding from or hesitant to feel. I am blessed to have a very open dialogue with like life. I was talking earlier about how there is this, hey Robert, this 360 theater around you that's always telling you what you got going on. And for one reason or another, I was open to this, and so I have this kind of conversation. It's almost like life whispers to me, and this is how I work with clients too. I can read these symbols. When I say metaphysician, it's basically that. And I was running in the warehouse district, and I tripped, and I fell, and I was sitting down on this stoop, and just kind of like, I could feel, I've been becoming more present to my personal experience over the last year, and so this was the first time I'd really been hurt or had an impact in some time. And so I sat down, and I was like, instead of pushing it down, I was like, how do I feel? So I brought my attention to my pain, and I was feeling this in my body, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. Like, it hurts, but like, how miraculous to have like this connection. So I'm sitting there being with my pain, and it looks like, I don't know if it was post-robbery or pre-robbery, but there was a guy running and two guys running after him, and one of the guys in the back was like, you can't run, you can't hide. And so that guy darted down the street. They ran back to the car. They chased after him. I live in New Orleans, so like, it's not that strange for me to see something strange. But while I was sitting there with my pain and I'm watching this, and I'm asking like, why is this in my theater? What's here for me? And the messaging is like, I can't run. There's no place I'll ever find relief except when I am relief. And it's coming to see that most of your thoughts, most of your impulses to action are to escape this. And so I just started to make space to be with how I felt. And it looks boring and dull, but you just kind of like sit still. You open to it, you be willing, you intend, you follow what you feel like doing versus what you think like doing. And over time, this empties. And what I'm finding is I used to have this kind of like very bright, sunny disposition that I didn't realize was largely effortful for me. And it was so natural, I didn't recognize the effort. But the effort was basically pushing away how I felt and ignoring really what was there until I was so far from Earth, I could see all this stuff. Now that these things is there something left in there? I think I still have some stuff left in the tank to empty, but with even what I've done so far in the last, I focused on this part, a deeper layer of it this year, but I've been having this conversation with myself for several, to be honest, around what am I hesitant to feel. And what I'm finding is then there is this natural, you don't run from the present, which means you don't have to work to drag your ass back to the present. There is this effortlessness in being because you're not avoiding it. You're not avoiding your personal experience, and thereby you're there for it. So a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about in these broadcasts are ways to see how you're tricking yourself so that you don't work it's like you trick yourself, you create this problem, and then you do more stuff to create the problem that you created through tricking yourself. And you trick yourself through misbelief, misthinking, and it's nobody's fault, just sort of like handed down. And so there's this effortlessness to these destinations that are available when you stop doing what you're doing. So it's not how do you do more, it's how do you see what you're doing that's not helpful, and it all removes what you've got here. So when I'm talking about this stuff, I touch on personal things, and if you've been watching me for some time or you've been around a little bit, I guess there is, okay, so going back to the impulse to act, you'd have to think like, girl's got some shit going on if she's dedicated her whole life to this. It's like, yeah, I had some stuff, and I had a lot of stuff, and I didn't really know, which is very embarrassing to find out. It took some time to process as well, because going back to this 360 view, I put it on everything else, but it was mine. And coming to terms with that, accepting that, both that it was mine and that I was projecting it and that other people likely saw, took some stuff. But on the other side, again, there's a lot of freedom. And I point that out because sometimes if you're not really going fast, I don't think I'd look like somebody who had a lot of stuff here. And also because I had this going for me. And so there's an intensity to when I present this that might not be there for you in as big of a way depending on your own personal experience. Which is to say, it might not be as big or as this as I might make it sound. It could be very subtle for you. It could be just tiny little tweaks to allow you to align with this, where I had a lot to kind of like unpack. And if you are somebody who has had a lot to unpack, I would point this out. See how I can do this now? And maybe this is valuable to you, or maybe it's not. But like when I sit down with myself and I work out, is this real? Am I helping? I do work with people one-on-one. I do watch their lives change. I have seen my own life change. So I know that what I'm offering isn't like for everybody. But there is something here that's real and is actionable and works and ties to other things people in similar fields had said. Which is to say, had I not had all that, I wouldn't be able to do all this. And it seems like if you have a lot of things that you're unpacking, that there is a blessing and a gift in it. And if you don't have a lot of unpacking, don't think you're not blessed or gifted either. I'm just sort of saying, like, there is something in all of it if you allow it to be. And I talk a lot in broadcasts and with clients about X-Men skills, and it's basically saying that if you went through a lot of trauma, or the word that I'll come up with to replace trauma, you likely mutated in some type of way. And until you learn to use your mutation consciously and from a place of love rather than a place from fear, you'll likely burn down your trees and everybody else's trees, and you might not even notice you're doing it. A lot of the things that happen when you've mutated are outside of your awareness. It's very Dr. Jekyll, Dr. Hyde. And because it's projected outside, you don't recognize it as you. It's kind of like being a dragon. You have this big ass tail, and you go into the kitchen and you're like, I'm gonna tidy the kitchen. And you tidy the kitchen, and then you hear somebody coming and you're like, and you wail your big dragon tail and you knock all the stuff over, and then you come back and you're like, who did this to my kitchen? That's basically the opportunity that's here. As you come to see how you create your own mess, either through action that's not conscious to you or expectations that are also unconscious to you, and then you don't have as many messes to clean up. And like, I'm still unfolding myself and my life and everything, but from a peace harmony standpoint, like, and that's another thing I had to kind of come to terms with in coming out to speak. It's like, well, girl, are you perfect? And one, nobody is. But two, when I look at the gains that I've made, like, it is worth sharing, because statistically, I really should be, I should be dead. Statistically, I should be dead. And I'm not. And just the quality of my own personal experience has increased so much, and I can see it on this. On everybody I touch, everything I touch, it's mostly, almost entirely harmonious, which is mind-blowing. It is mind-blowing because it's effortless. There was a lot to feel to get to that place, and a lot of practice and being mindful of intention, but the point of the story is, one, maybe it doesn't have to be hard for you, but two, it is possible. So I really appreciate everybody coming out to this. Midday, if there is something that, thank you. If there is something that I talk about that resonates particularly and you want me to, do more in that direction, please let me know. I started today by saying this is a little bit more abstract of a topic. So I called myself for a long time a behavioral metaphysician, was basically like, I can move your behavior by changing your thoughts. And I do love to do that shit. Partly that was a guise for me to share what I had under a more recognizable storefront, which is, things people can see or touch. These things that are deeper behind the scenes that I don't really have, a scroll of scientific proof for, I felt a little more uncomfortable in saying, and also I'd had to come out of my own magic closet and say, like, I believe in all these things. And what I found, I'm like, it's really fucking grounded, actually, and it makes way more sense. So what I've been talking about in these broadcasts, I'm hoping it creates a bridge between like what we learn as far as logical, analytical thinking, a use of our minds that's to control, and these non-physical concepts which actually generate those results now. It's all about now. Ain't nowhere else but now. Yeah, I forgot where I started that thought, but so this would be on the more abstract side. If this is a direct, like, I really love this stuff, and I love to talk about this, and yet I don't know if this is helpful to where other people are, and I do want to, it's no good for me to share stuff that doesn't go anywhere, maybe ultimately, but I would love to be relative in some ways, or at least somehow connected to where people are and what they need. So please let me know what topics and what level of exploration of the topics are most helpful to you and resonate the most. And also the format for these. I'm looking at creating, I think I'm calling them 2-page to go iAMradio notes. And each broadcast then would have a handout. I think I'm likely going to sell those. My dad was like, "Are you making any money off those?" And I was like, "Well, it is a way for me to connect with new clients and practice stuff for my books and other stuff I'll sell." But I think it is helpful for me to use that, one, to see what people actually really value, but two, like, it would be so cool if I really could put all my attention into doing this, and that would be one way for me to do that. So, but any thoughts, format, or ideas on the format are welcome. Like I mentioned, I do work with people one-on-one, and my specialty is really zeroing in. I have an intuitive gift, and I can match where somebody is and help them tease out these ideas that are causing them suffering. And I do that in a bunch of different formats. You can check out my website, habitbook.com/transform is the shop. Habitbook.com is the main page. There are some old client reviews on one of them. And I also have a button to book an info call if you would like to talk to me about how this might work for where you are. I do my best to keep it real. I'm in the business of respecting people, and if what you come present isn't something that I feel comfortable in helping you with, I'm gonna tell you. If I think there's somebody better to help you accomplish what you're doing, maybe a different modality or even an individual, I'll tell you. So the info calls are really sincere and genuine, and I want to do the best work I can, and that requires me taking on clients that are correct for me. So we can talk about how things work and how it might work for you. Thanks so much for coming out midday.